Hi, everyone. Debra Hamilton, Hamilton ADR, North Carolina, and the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, as well as this wonderful community um, where we figure out how to make sure our pets are well cared for in the event something happens. It was really amazing today. I drove from Eastern North Carolina to sort of the middle of Carolina, 4.5 hours. And uh, I had my sign on my dashboard saying, in the event of an emergency, call these people. And I got here, everything was safe and sound. And I'm standing there with all the field people and hunt people. And they saw the sticker on my dashboard. And they go, "Well, what's that?" I said, "Well, that's in the event I get into an accident." I said, "They know who to call if something happens to me and I'm hauled off." There are 4 people in this area that I know. And so I put their numbers down. That little slip of paper changes with every place I go. So it was interesting. They all said, "Well, we have to call you." I said, "Well, you can join me tonight. Just go on hamiltonlawmediation.com and sign up. It's free, and hear about making a plan, appointing caregivers, addressing the needs of your pet, and publishing that plan. Because if you don't publish it, don't bother making it, because no one will know what you want them to follow." So last week, we had a really impactful conversation, which I think on my LinkedIn page and on my Facebook page got many, many, many hits because everybody was worried about me. Well, I think there's probably something going on, and I'm going for more tests next week. I'm old and I'm fat, so that's never a good mix. I don't have diabetes or anything else. However, I think there's probably something going on. And I always think that if you listen to something and they're saying the thing that you in the back of your head know. So I was listening to this podcast called The Daily Bean. And the woman who was on The Daily Bean was at a conference in front of 2,700 people. And she didn't feel very well. And she fell faint on the ground in front of 2,700 people. And I looked up and I said to my mother, "I'm going. Don't worry. I'm going. I know I didn't feel well. I need to go." And their mantra for the entire discussion after they talked about the news was, "Remember, listen to your body. Remember, listen to your body." So beside making a plan for your pets, make sure you listen to your body, because we all think we're sort of supermen and superwomen, and we are on so many levels. However, there are times when we aren't. And so I'd like to make sure that everyone takes the time to make sure they're healthy and continue to be healthy. Their dogs are healthy and continue to be healthy. And that the things that are important to us are important, and we take care of it. So today I drove down, I had the names on the car, and it's interesting because everybody, and all of you are here, so I'm speaking to the choir. Everyone says they need to be here, and then they're not. So try to bring a friend next time, because your dogs cannot navigate the journey they take if something happens to you. And it doesn't mean just by death. So last week we talked about my episode, walking Junie, thinking, shoot, if I don't get back to the house, Jim's traveling, there's nobody home to get the dog. I'm sure everybody on my block knows, if they see Junie, who Junie is, but I wasn't anywhere near my block. So it was really a little bit scary. And as it turns out, I was fine. I got home fine. Everything was wonderful. However, it gave me quite the insight that I brought here on Wednesday. Well, if you saw my Facebook page today, I shared that someone had an episode, and I talk about this when I talk about making a plan. You might not get home. You might get sick. During COVID, that was the single most forgotten thing, was when people went to the hospital because they weren't feeling well, and then were kept and put on a ventilator. They had not made long-term plans or even short-term plans for their pets. And a lot of their pets were taken, to animal care and control, because maybe after 2 weeks, the neighbor who had been taking care of it said, "These dogs probably still have COVID and I don't want to take care of them." And so they went to animal care and control, and animal care and control will hold them for the specific number of days in your neck of the woods. 5 to 7 usually is the recommended days of holding it. And if you're on a ventilator, you're not answering the phone. And if you live alone and don't have family, and the only number they have for this dog is the one on the collar, and that phone's not being picked up, the dog will stay for the 5 to 7 days. And then, of course, the dog will go to a rescue, either an all-breed rescue, or if you have a wonderful Irish setter like I do, or a Catan like Susan has, then you're going to have those dogs likely go to a breed-specific rescue to find a different home. So if you don't want that to happen, you really do have to leave information. So that means you have to make a plan, and that plan has to outline what it is, the kind of care you want your pets to get, short-term, long-term, because if you're not dead yet, you probably want your dogs back. I know I would. However, if your dogs are given away to a shelter and the dogs are adopted from that shelter, you can never get them back. And I don't like to scare people that way. However, it's quite true. You cannot get your dog back. So if I adopt your dog from a shelter, and it's a beautiful dog, it's a beautiful Irish setter, very well trained, lovely manners, you're not getting it back because you were on a ventilator and couldn't answer the phone. So that's why you need to have a sticker on your car when you're going to the grocery store, when you're going on a 4-hour trip. So today I put up in my Facebook page that a gentleman had what the breeder and others thought lost his 2-year-old dog. She was a girl, Ruby, because he had an episode in a dog park. And so you would presume if he was at a dog park, the dog would be with him. I'm just saying, that's what people presume. Well, thankfully, Ruby, the 2-year-old Irish, was not with him and was safely at home. He is now recuperating. The breeder, who's Leslie Russell, messaged me and said that she'd love to talk to me about what happened, and there's nothing you can do to prevent this. And I have to raise my hand because I always do. Yeah, there is. When I was walking with Junie and I thought I might kiss the pavement, I took my scrunchie off my head and I put it through the loop of the leash and then put the scrunchie on my hand. Now, it's a little tighter than my leash. It wouldn't fall off. And I really wanted to make sure that if something happened to me, Junie would remain attached to me. And I think that that's the biggest thing we have to worry about, is that there are things you can buy that attach the dog to your waist as well as to, a leash. But if we're not thinking gloom and doom, we're all going to live to be forever and the dogs are going to stay fine. However, if you're feeling poorly and you get a warning like I did, take the time to make sure the dog's attached to you so that it doesn't run off if, God forbid, something happens to you, because then it's really hard to get them back. So this dog seemed to be at home, safe and sound, and so okay. I just want everyone here to know that there is almost never a situation that you can't plan for, because when Connie is here, we're always talking about planning for fire. The people on the East Coast were talking about planning for hurricanes and snow, and electrical outages. In the Midwest, tornadoes. So there are always steps you can take. 99% of the time they'll work, 1% of the time they may not. But if you have something in place, I talk to veterinarian offices all the time, and they're talking about emergencies that happen in their practice. And I'm not talking the kind like, you're scratched or you're cut or you stab yourself or something. I'm talking about angry clients who hit you with their cane kind of emergencies. I said, you really have to do some drills. You really have to figure out how to help the veterinarian and the staff get out of that situation when it arises, because everybody is so emotional now, more emotional than we've ever been, especially about our animals. So it's really important to make a plan. And that includes what happens if I have, a broken bone? What happens if I am diagnosed with cancer and have to go through chemotherapy? What happens if I'm diagnosed with Alzheimer's? Do I want to keep my dog? Do I want to place my dog? What do I want to do? Do I see my dog? I know that one of my dogs lived with an owner of mine because every time she saw the dog, it grounded her. She remembered her life. So I let her go even after her girl died so that she would hold that person tethered. So there are so many things that we have to consider, make a plan, and that means you have to sit down and write it. And then you have to appoint caregivers. And we all know that those caregivers have to be at least three. Sally is traveling this week, and so she lives in Connecticut. She has backup people in the area, but she wanted to have an extra backup person. And so my son lives in Brooklyn, which is not that far away. And he absolutely is on board to be the backup person for her Irish setters, which also happen to be my Irish setters. So my son lived with those Irish setters, so he's okay with that. But you really do need to think about what happens if your caregiver gets sick? What happens if your caregiver, while you're away, God forbid, gets into a car accident or you get delayed? Remember, we have the D's. Death is only one of them. Disease, delay, disaster, dementia, deployment, disability. There are so many things that can happen. So you really need to make sure when you appoint caregivers, you have heir and a spare and a spare. So you want the person who's going to be there, and then you want the person who they know to call if they can't care for the dog, plus the person they can call in lieu of the fact that that person might not be able to come. So Sally is sort of the poster child for heir, a spare, and a spare, because she does have a caregiver, but in case something happens to that caregiver, she has another caregiver. And if something happens to that caregiver, she has my son, which means she has me, because I'd get in the car and in 8 hours, I would be at the door. So it's just something you really have to think about. And it has to be in writing. And people have to know about each other. So if Rose and Sally and Jan were my caregivers for my dogs, and we lived either relatively close or far away, they would have to know about each other. And I also always speak about the need for a nosy neighbor. So the neighbor needs to know who those people are who are going to come and care for the dog, so that if you aren't able to tell the police or EMTs what's going to happen to your dogs, the neighbor can have a piece of paper that says, Jan gave me this. I know exactly where Tonka is supposed to go, which means in the house, and I know exactly who to call, so leave him there. Because as I said, one of the serious issues that arose during COVID was that the dogs were removed from the home. And then if the person was sick for a week or 2 or 3 and wasn't answering their phones, after 5 days, the dogs are released to animal care and control. So we really want to make sure that we put things together. So now I've talked for a pretty long time this morning. I want to add before I forget, Rose is going to try to put up the flyers for both, but in any event, the flyers will be in the show notes. There is a wonderful therapy dog symposium being held in Philadelphia, the National Dog Show, National Therapy Dog Symposium at Rowan University is going to be December 7th. It's $50 to attend in person. And that's because they're giving you lunch. It's $25 to attend virtually. It is, I believe it's the 5th year, and it has some awesome speakers. Rose did put it in the chat, but it'll also be part of the show notes. If you want more information, load the chat. And if not, if you want to wait, it'll be in the show notes. Or if you want to shoot me a text or a messenger, I'm happy to send it to you. It is one of the quintessential therapy dog symposiums that gives you credit for therapy dog handlers. Also there's going to be a veterinary assistant component this time. There's a wonderful animal assisted canine I think that's our keynote speaker. It's going to be really great. So if you want to go, I do have affiliation to it, by the way. I've been on the board since its inception. I've been a sponsor of it since its inception because, of course, I think therapy dogs are probably the single most important thing out there for people who are in need, who have issues arising, or that, these dogs go to every place in the universe to help people decompress. They use them at the university. They're really phenomenally trained dogs. They are not service animals and they are not emotional support animals. They are therapy dogs, and they belong to someone, and that someone is a very dedicated person who works really hard to keep their pets up to the standards of the therapy dog awards. So that's one. And the second one is Jan Jeremias, one of our community members, is having a grief program for 8 weeks, and that is also in the chat. It is going to be phenomenal. All of us, unless we have our first dog, and it doesn't seem like anyone here has had their first dog, they have many, so we know what is coming. Even though our dog is very young, we know it's coming. So Jan and her colleague, and I'll let Jan talk about that when we introduce ourselves and catch up, she's having a wonderful grief program. I've actually sent it out to 7, I kid you not, 7 of my clients who are having a really hard time with the loss of a pet. It really is something that affects people long-term. And so this is going to be a really good program. So Susan, I'm going to start with you. How's Maggie?
We're using the Reggie, and it's a little bit of a mixed bag. We've had some good results, and other times, like, I'll put down 3 of them and I'm still getting a lot of barking. I'm sorry for that call coming in.
That's all right. One came in just 5 minutes ago for me, so no worry. It wasn't even for me.
Yeah. So, I love Maggie, but she does drive me crazy at times. And because,
she's an individual, and that's why you and I really have to start working more closely, if you'd like, to try to find those caregivers, because it is really important, since she is a unique individual, for you to find the right caregivers for her.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be difficult, and I honestly, I have my moments where I'm not sure I can continue with Maggie, because I had an important conversation with Tom yesterday.
Oh, good.
Well, but every time I opened my mouth, the dog started barking like crazy. And so it was almost impossible to carry on a conversation because of the dog. So I'm ready to dump out the whole jar of Reggie to see if I can get her to shut up. But
she'll be calm then. She might be comatose, but she'll be calm.
I mean, it says it's safe to give up to 3 of them.
Yeah, especially for her weight, because she's small.
Yeah.
Well, stay with it, and you and I should probably catch up, because you really do. It's been almost 1.5 years now, and so we have to make sure that you get past the signs on the refrigerator, making sure that everybody knows who to get for the dog. So give her a kiss to me anyway, but don't get bitten while you're doing it.
Yeah, right.
Sally, how are the girls? I hear you're going away. How dare you?
Yeah, how dare us? But my husband has been at the grill for 1.5 hours preparing.
I should share those pictures.
Yes, while we're gone. So he's now cooking organic vegetables and brown rice to make sure that they're taken care of while we're gone. The girls are great. They're older, and we've had not with our dogs, but with other dogs, some confrontations on the road with walking. One woman had a 40-foot lead on a dog, and the dog became aggressive and jumped a fence to attack a dog who was in his own yard behind a fence, and took the woman on the lead down flat on her back.
Oh no.
And the other dog escaped. And luckily, I wasn't walking yet. I was at home with the girls. But, as I've said before, everything can happen in a split second. and
Split
you're just
second.
walking along and it's sunny and life is good. And then just boom, like that, everything changes. So you do have to make a plan and be prepared in advance.
Right. And last week we talked about taking something with you that will alert someone about who to call if you're walking your dog. So it might be a little, piece of paper in your pocket, or I think Jan or Sally or Susan talked about something you can tie to your shoelace that has a little pocket in it. A lot of runners have those, that you can put some telephone numbers in case of emergency, call this, because the dogs can't find home themselves. And these days, most of us only have our name and our telephone number. The old days we used to have our name, our telephone number, our address, but now we're a little scared of that. So we only have our telephone numbers, and that's not really helpful. So Air, how are you? It's been a long time. Welcome back. I know. How are your babies? I'm sorry, I've forgotten their names.
Oh, it's Morty.
That's right. That's right.
She's gonna be 12 in February, so she's doing great considering, approaching
God bless.
yes.
God
Yeah.
bless.
So I've learned about this event, and I thought this is an interesting topic because we never thought that anything bad would happen to us, right? It's who does that? Who just, jinx themselves? Nobody does. But things do happen unexpectedly, and it's good. It is a good reminder of how fragile life could be.
Yeah.
And what would happen to our dogs or cats or animals,
Birds
in our
or
care.
horses or tortoises or snakes. Some
Anything
of
at
them
all.
are a little harder to rehome. However, people do take them, but it really is. And last week I had a bit of a dizzy spell while I was walking, and my legs became jelly-like. And so I spoke about it that night, because it happened actually maybe the day before the Wednesday call, because we don't think about something happening to us. So it's so good you're here, Air, because it really is important to take something with you if you're walking the dog, but also if you're out. Like I said, you got on a little bit later. I have a sticker on my car. I'm in Pinehurst, North Carolina. I live in Morehead City, which is 4.5 hours from here. But as I was driving across, I had the numbers of 3 people who were in succession from where I was driving in case something happened. It was my husband, it was my friend Kathy McNamee, and here it was Lisa Schrank, because she knows my dog. So I wanted to make sure there were people at every place I was going to be who, if something happened to me, could take my dog.
Right. And I mean, people want to help. There was like a few weeks ago, Morty would just lay in our backyard, in our front yard, and in our driveway. And so I let her do it because I know she's like stick around pretty good. She doesn't take off. And then I was just working, and then all of a sudden my phone keeps ringing. And I thought, I don't know this number. It said North Carolina. So I did not answer, and it kept ringing and kept ringing. And then the corner of my eyes, I see, an older couple like holding on to Morty, and I pat her and like gingerly, and like I can see it's right there on my sidewalk. And I went out there and say hi, and they said, "Is this your dog?" And I said, "Yes, it's my dog." And the older lady said, "Well, it kept, follow me." I mean, I witnessed the whole thing. That's why I was not panicking at all. Like I know she would go beyond that point for sure. But I saw it and I didn't do anything. And she was like, "I thought it was lost. So I tried to call the number on the tag, and it was my number. But again, I didn't answer."
Right, because you know the number. How many of us get spam calls? We never answer a number that isn't identified anymore, right?
No, and then she called another number on the tag, because I have 2 numbers on, but that number was no longer, belonged to us. Yeah. And so she kept calling, and I thought, oh, this is really nice to know that people genuinely want to help. Just have to give them some information so then they can help you the right way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's just like, even just as simple as the tag with the current number, and that is at least the minimum they could do if they wanted to.
Right. Absolutely. And the leashes, the collars with the numbers imprinted that Ellen Bean and everybody makes, it's really important, because the tags maybe could fall off, but the one on the collar with the number never falls off. And it's amazing, because people, Good Samaritans, will see the dog out there, and even though the dog's not going anywhere, they could scoop it up going, "Are you lost?" and walk away, and you're like, "Wait a minute, where are you going with my dog?"
Right.
Yeah, and it's it's an interesting time, and we really need to make sure that we understand that people really do love animals very much, and so they always want to help the animal.
Yeah. So
and-
that
yeah.
that was really like interesting interaction, because I had this like a device on her collar that basically a GPS tracking, and it
Right.
tracks how her health and all that. But I mean, I was just watching, and what is sniffing these lovely people, and she just like interacting, and they just keep petting her, kind of
She was just
soothing
checking to
her.
see if it's a better home. She was going to go with them if they smelled good.
I was like, wow, this is, and the phone kept ringing. I did not connect two and two until I thought I better go check it, because they sometimes people just pet her and they keep walking, but this interaction goes a little longer than normal. And some people would, when they see Morty sit on our sidewalk or in our front yard, they don't know the dog, and I don't blame them. They just easily move over to the other side of the
Other side.
sidewalk.
Yeah.
So that helps too, right? And so I was like, I'm so lucky I have windows that I can watch out the world. But I know why now, like why the dogs love to watch out the windows, because it's interesting.
It's interesting to watch the interactions. Absolutely.
And I was like, yeah, that's why dogs love watching, just staring out the window. Just never know what you're gonna see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad Morty was safe. Jan, how are you doing, honey?
I am. I'm good. And Tonka's doing better. For him, has
Yeah,
so
'cause
much.
he was out of sorts last week. He must have known I wasn't feeling well. That's why he was out of sorts.
Yeah, he's on the anxious side. And if I can't exercise him as much as
There he is.
there he is. If I can't, I guess we're talking about you. His tail's going. Yeah, say hello to
Hi, buddy.
he just needs to work out. And I mean, I could walk him 5 miles and it wouldn't even be dent for him. And it's just, sometimes I'm like, buddy, can you just like a little bit, but no, he's doing much better. And so that's good. Yeah.
And give us a little bit more information about the program, the date and the time. And
Yeah. So it's actually an 8-week program, starting January 8th. It's going to be almost 8 consecutive weeks, except for 1 week, I think is President's Weekend, and we kind of canceled. And we're going to give everybody tools of, meditations, all these different things that people can do to help them process the loss and move it into something that's, I don't want to say more joyful, like just to remember your pet in a more joyful manner. The last session is we have a harpist coming in who actually is going to play for like a tribute to everyone's pet. And so that we're super excited about. She's from Germany. And so we're really excited and looking forward to sharing and helping people through this, through this process that we all go through at one time or another if you're a pet person.
great. I'm so glad that you put it up, and I'm so glad I can share it here, and I'll share it in the show notes. So hopefully a number of people, because as I said, I have a number of clients who are struggling with the loss of pets. And so your program might be just up their alley, what they need. Deb, welcome. Good to see you.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. I've been on here before, but not for a
Yes, you
long
have.
time. And
I
I
know.
just thought I needed to check back in.
How are you doing with making your plan?
It's
Well,
done.
first tell us the name of your dog again, or cat again.
I've got 5 dogs and a cat. So I've got a pile, but no, I made the plan. I wrote the plan. I spread it out amongst the people that were involved. So I talked to my neighbors. So
You got your nosy neighbor involved. Very good.
I got a lot of good information from you before.
Good. And it's really so important to have everyone know who the other party is, because if in fact something happens and I can't get there, but that Sally's a backup for me, if I'm the first person, that's really great. And of course, if you have neighbors, if they know where that piece of paper is in your house, I always say to people, have it up on your refrigerator, because I have no shame. However, if you don't want a piece of paper with numbers up on your refrigerator, you can always just have a card saying, in case of emergency, dog care is in yellow file next to the refrigerator, so that they can find it. Make it bright red, make it yellow, make it pink, whatever. So
It's on the refrigerator. It's in the car. Yeah, we're good.
Good, because it's a simple thing to do, but it gives you peace of mind. If the dogs are
It
with the
does.
car, then they know who to call. If the dogs are home alone, like this dog was that was on Facebook, Ruby, she was home alone. As it turns out, she was fine and she was safe and she was okay. But nobody knew that at the time, and there was nothing to tell them that the dog wasn't with them, because as I talked about last week, if you fall face first on the pavement, letting go of the leash is probably going to be the least of your worries. However, it's the most of your worries, as it was mine when I was walking. So that's why now I think, beside having your phone with you, which is great, which of course locks, so nobody can get any of that information.
True.
Having either a piece of paper
Ice.
in your pocket, ice, and that wouldn't tell them what to do with the dog.
Well, that's true.
Unless the ice people know what to do with the dog. So I am a big person in redundancy. Redundancy is my middle name. So, I have all the information on my dog's crate in my car. I have all the information on the dashboard of my car. And when I'm walking the dog, I have it in my pocket, or I just ordered from Amazon and I'll send it to Rose, a little envelope kind of thing, canvas envelope that's on my shoe that would say, in case of emergency, this is what to do with my dogs in case I'm face down. Unfortunately, and I say this with all love and affection, none of us on this call are 21. And even if we were, that would not shield us from something happening. We just had a wonderful young girl pass away. She didn't feel good. She stayed home from the dog show. Her mother went to get her the next morning because she didn't answer her phone and she was gone. I think she was early 30s. And just the picture of how thin, beautiful, lovely, beautiful spirit. God only knows what happened. I mean, they haven't published anything, so I have no idea. But whatever happened, took her at the prime of her life with, like 8 dogs or something like that were in her care. They were probably at the dog show, and so everybody, helped out. That's sort of the best of worlds and the worst of worlds for dog show people, because we all know our colleagues will come to help us take care of our pets. That was like today. When I was at the field trial with my dog, who beautifully found his bird, pointed his bird, held for, I apologize for everyone who loves birds, the shot that dropped the bird, retrieved the bird and handed it to the handler. And I was right there and I got pictures. But the thing is that, if you don't have a plan, then you could be out in that woods, you twisting your ankle. Susie Sullivan, my friend, was out with this dog, field training him when he was a baby puppy, and he wrapped his leash around her ankle and took off and took her ankle with him. So she was in a cast for 9 weeks with multiple fractures of her ankle. So really, and screws and plates and everything else. So really, it isn't silly to think that we need to do all these things. And Deb, I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad you have all the paperwork put together, because it may seem redundant. However, redundancy is your friend when you have pets. And when you have the dog out front, just so, because I'm gloom and doom, but I'm not, but I am. There are people who pick up dogs and keep walking. So from the time you would see them do it till you got outside by the window, they could be gone. Because I've had 3 clients who have taken dogs from the front yard have had their dogs taken from their front yard. So just so you know, my dogs never go in my front yard. I am the meanest person in the universe. They never in my front yard. They're only in my backyard. And just make sure that if she's out there, that, you're watching and time how long it takes you to get from your desk, or if you're looking down to the front window or the front door or outside, because especially you're in California air, right?
No, I'm in Minnesota.
Minnesota. Oh, well, maybe they don't steal dogs as much in Minnesota as they do in California and New
That
York.
might be- that might be, I hope that's the right, assumptions. I mean,
Yeah.
I am aware of what you have mentioned, and that is something.
So,
like
you know, I hate to cast aspersions on the wonderful people who walk by your house and pet your dog and who your dog likes to be out there saying hello to. And I'm sure that she's microchipped. So
Mhm.
yeah, so that's always helpful. But we just have to be a little more aware.
Right.
Because especially she's a little dog, right?
No, she's 70 pounds.
Oh, well then, yeah, she's not going anywhere. Sorry. I remembered her as a little dog. What is she? She's a mixture.
She is a husky and boxer mix.
Oh,
So
okay.
24 inches tall and then 70 pounds. And
Yeah.
she looks very intimidating. When she just sit and enjoy the scenery, she looks very intimidating. But
Right.
yeah, I mean,
So then
thanks
it's
for the
less
reminder.
likely, yeah, that she'd be taking a walk with somebody.
But yeah, I mean, it's never a bad idea to have that kind of awareness in the back of your mind, because I recognize the majority of the regulars that walk by my house, so and but yeah, you just never know, because this kind of casual habits sometimes could be a very dangerous when we have another dog that's smaller than Morty's,
Yes.
so used to a big dog, right? But you just never know in the future.
You don't know, and you don't know what they're looking for. So not to be gloom and doom and worry word of the universe and spoil everybody's day. Just be aware, because however long it's going to take you to get out of the house. And so Junie's here, and I know that he is the most aloof dog in the entire universe. He would not walk up to you if you were standing on my front lawn. He would look at you and just say, hello and goodbye. And that's the way he is. However, my girls would run up to you and say, hi, how are you? What's going on? Well, maybe not Athena, or maybe not me with Athena. And by the way, there's an inside joke with my family. And I'll tell you, I was in New York this weekend, and of course it was Halloween, and I was at the Halloween parade in Greenwich Village. And I walked by this woman who was dressed like Cruella de Vil. Stranger. So talk about strange and stranger. I walk up to her and I said, could I take my picture with you? My sons have called me Cruella de Vil my entire life. And I would just like to say that I met Cruella de Vil, and here she is. And so we took a picture with her. But, there are people out there who are like Cruella de Vil. So we just really have to make sure we keep our dogs safe. They're counting on us. They're counting on us to navigate the journey they take with us and without us. So that's why I have the MAAP program, which navigates the journey that your pet takes when you can't care for it. So of course, I'm at over 7:00. I want to open it up. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask or comment on anything that we spoke about tonight? Because I know it's 2 weeks in a row that I spoke about something happening to you, the pet owner, unexpectedly. And I just want to make sure that everybody, if they have questions, that they ask them. So I'm going to start with you, Jan. Any questions?
No, I'm good. I did say, so I've been doing a lot of pet sitting lately for other people. And I have to say, I now ask very different questions and require a lot of different information now that I've been here.
Now that you're the person on deck, right? And
Yeah.
your name is on the refrigerator.
And so I've been just some of these people I've never met before, but just, the questions I ask, sometimes I think I've been told I'm very thorough.
Well, that's good. That's good. Sally, anything to add?
No, I agree with Jan. You have to be very thorough, because like I said before, things pop up very unexpectedly. It's like, oh my goodness, now what do I do? So I think that's a very good point. You can't be too thorough.
Any questions, Air?
No, I'm good. I'm just here to absorbing all the goodies.
Good. And just make sure you put something on your refrigerator tonight for Morty.
Yep.
In case of emergency, or else just put something in a file and say, look in the yellow file for where Morty goes if something happens to me. Because you can't always anticipate that your family's going to be there.
Right,
and they want to be with you. So if there's an alternative, that would be great.
Yeah, that reminds me, like when I first have like babysit Morty that come to our home, and I make a file for her. And I just, like how I care for Morty, what she knows, what she doesn't like, that kind of personalities test, that kind of thing. And it's like now I can just add the emergency contact, to the pile of Morty stuff. So,
Absolutely. They have to know how to get in touch with someone if they can't get in touch with you, and you have to let that person know.
Right.
Susan, anything to add?
Just, no, I keep thinking I've been planning to take Maggie to a day spa, and I really need to start
Knock
looking
it
into that
off.
and doing that. I've just been so incredibly busy. But also I have to say, I could never let my dog out alone with one of those electronic fences. I don't trust them. I wouldn't be able, but I can't get Maggie out there anyway, so
I
it's kind
know.
of a moot point, but I would never do that with my
We have
dog.
to fix that in the new year, Susan. We have to help you fix that in the new year. So
Yeah,
more exercise.
I think the day spa maybe is a good idea, because then I could start making some connections and maybe it would help calm her down. I don't know.
I don't know. It's always worth a try.
Yeah, I mean, there are places where they can do like water exercise, or, like a
But you
woman
have to
would.
be able to get her there.
Yeah, I mean, I could get her into the crate, that I
Right.
can do, but yeah, so that's on my list of things to do, but
All right. That's your Christmas present to Maggie and to you.
yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Deb, anything to add? I'm so glad to see you again. And remind me again what your dogs are. I think I know, but
I have a Springer, a Greyhound, a Tibetan Spaniel, a Smooth Collie, and a Basset Fauve de Bretagne.
oh, wonderful. God, you've got a whole crew there.
Yep, yep.
Are they all retired, or are they babies, or are they older?
3 are retired. The Fauve is 5, and the Collie is my puppy who's 9 months.
Yeah, good luck with that.
That's
What
him
do we
barking
think
in the
when we get a
background.
big dog as a puppy? We're like, well, hopefully the little dogs are teaching the big dog. I babysat for an Irish setter this weekend who is ruled by an English Cocker Spaniel. So she still believes she's smaller than the English Cocker Spaniel. So hopefully the Collie will imprint that she is always smaller than the other dogs.
As a puppy, he could walk under the Greyhound, and he still tries to now. And the Greyhound looks like, wow, it's pretty funny.
That is fun. Well, Junie still does that. He goes between my legs all the time. And so I always tell my owners when they take my puppies home, don't let them do something, that when they get big, it's going to be a problem. God forbid I listen to myself, because,
Exactly.
if they go between your legs when they're, 3.5 feet high, they could put you ass over tea kettle, and
Exactly.
it would be not funny. So I can feel the Greyhound's pain. Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad all of you are here. I hope tonight was helpful. I hope you picked up some good tidbits. Remember, we are absolutely super women and super men. However, sometimes shit happens. And so make sure that you bring something with you when you take your dog for a walk, or when you're in your car with your dog, or when you're in your car and you're not with your dog, so somebody can get your dog. And until next week, this is Debra Hamilton, ADR, North Carolina, and of course, the wonderful MAAP community. I'm so glad all of you are here. Don't forget about the National Dog Shows Therapy Dog Symposium. It's a really fun event to attend, even if you don't have a therapy dog. Maybe you want to make one of your dogs a therapy dog. And also Jan Jeremiah's Grief 8-week program starting in January. We'll have that up because it really is such an important thing to take care of for yourself, because we all know that these wonderful adventurers who are with us on our journey in this life don't last long enough ever. However, having people support us and learning techniques to help us appreciate and acknowledge and revel in the wonderful life we had with them can make it a little easier to bear, not by much, but a little easier to bear. So until next week, this is Debra Hamilton, and I look forward. Kiss all your babies for me. I'm not even going to begin to try to name your dogs, Deb, but Tonka for Jan, and Athena and Roxy for Sally, and Maggie for Susan. And of course, Air, you have Moxie, right? Morty. Oh God. God help me. Morty, I'll get it right. I promise. Until next week, you guys all take care and call me if you need me.